very good question, and I think this is the first time someone is asking me this, the right question.
Changing my field and becoming a space architect. After listening to her, I feel like this is so interesting. I love the way.
I'm not going to disencourage you. Disencourage, is that even a term? But yeah, you got the point, right? Yeah.
View from the mountain is always beautiful, but the climb is what makes us sweat and turn away and then give up.
How do you like that?
How do you like that? No, I'm not going to go there.
Hello everyone and welcome to the season 2 episode 12 of Smurf House, a podcast where we mostly discuss space stuff but also end up rambling about a host of other topics from K-pop to NFTs. And this is your host Pooja from the Sky Explorers.
And your host Aleena, who is a potentially spaced out space person. Yeah, and we hope you all are doing well this week and also the coming week. And for those who have joined us for the first time, we are the podcast team of the Asia Pacific Oceania Space Association, also known as the APOSA, a sustainable space community development initiative at the Asia Pacific level. Through Space Smurfs, we are bringing to you different varieties of space topics wrapped up in a lot of fun and laughter.
Yeah, Aleena, by the way, I've been thinking in the last few episodes, we've been talking a lot about space travel. In fact, just one of our last episodes with Antonio and Bernadette of Moon Village Association, we spoke about the settlement on the moon. And I think it's going to be curious for everyone to know how exactly are we going to be living and settling on the moon. Don't you think so?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a very interesting question, actually. And I know a lot of audience might have the same thought, actually, because this is something that we have been discussing so far in a lot of our episodes as well. And apart from all of that, even Elon Musk has been talking about having mass settlements and things like that, right? And I actually have some thoughts on my own, actually, when it comes to space settlements, like how are these going to be like? And, like whether it's going to be like a capsule kind or like how we see in fictions and movies, but like, is it going to be like an igloo model or like, is it going to be as same as how we see on Earth, right? And I'm literally so curious to know about all this today.
I know, actually, Aleena, you're at the right place and the right time today then, because on our 12th episode, we have Miss Aastha Kacha, who is an award-winning space architect, and who's also the founder and CEO of Aaka Space Studio, which is the first space architectural studio in Canada and Asia. And I'm so excited for this session, and especially to know more about space architecture. Welcome, Aastha, to this episode of Space Smurfs.
Hi, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm super excited to share my knowledge here.
Thank you so much. And absolutely, we also have this wonderful opportunity, like the Space Smurfs always do, an opportunity for you all to interact with our expert, right? And like Aastha will be joining us this Saturday, that is 20th of August, on our Instagram with a live session at 7:30 p.m. IST. So don't forget to tune into the live session and ask your questions directly to Aastha. And also don't forget to follow Space Smurfs on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All these links and descriptions will be given in the box below. Just check it out and looking forward to seeing you for the interactive session, right? Yeah. And with that, without further ado, let's begin the smurfing. And I actually have my very first question ready for you, Aastha. I mean, I know you have come a lot of things ahead, like throughout your career and everything. And I want to know, like, about your inspiration and the journey that you have taken into the space industry, and specifically with the space architecture, which is super cool, first of all, I have to admit, and also very interesting. So please tell us about your journey into the space sector. Yeah.
Okay. I think a lot of times people ask me this question, and the funny thing is that I've been following this journey even before something like this even was recognized or something like this even came up. So it all started when I was just 13 years old. When I was 13 and when I was studying in the school, I was always fond of traveling and exploring. And we had this amazing opportunity to attend NASA Space Academy in Houston, Alabama. In Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama. And to be very honest, at that time I did not even have funds to travel from all over India over there and then afford that thing. So I just took that brochure. I came home with that brochure and I just threw it off the table. And my dad came home and he noticed that and he was like, no, you should be going over here. And that's how I took my first, and that was also my first time traveling abroad. I had never traveled abroad before that. So during the NASA Academy, we were given a lot of different kind of tasks, challenging ones. And one of the most interesting to me was to design something on the lunar base, on the moon base. And the reason being that was interesting to me because my mom is also a designer. So I was diverted towards designing and to the artwork and things like that. But I had no interest in science at that time. And I designed a fuel station because I thought we might run out of fuel while coming back to the Earth. And I got a lunar contract award at that time. And in that moment, I got vitalized to pursue architecture. So that time I thought, I need to become an architect to design something. And then I was like, but then how do I differentiate myself from the other architects? So I'll call myself a space architect. And that time there was no education in space architecture. There was nothing related to even space architecture. But then I had this thinking that if NASA is taking ideas from the students to build something on the moon from now, then like this. So, and I always believe that we are so capable, like every one of us is so capable. It is not just me, it is the capability is everybody has it inside of them. So and there is no limitation on what you can dream. So I was following this vision. Then I went to study in UK. I did my first year in UK, and then I got a scholarship. I got a European scholarship, and then I moved to Denmark. I studied a dual degree program, architecture plus structural engineering, and also construction project management. And after that, I was looking for courses in space architecture. I came across one in US, but that was again super expensive for me because I've always been funding my education, and I never believed in asking too much from my parents. So then I was like, but then how do I get into this thing? So in 2018, I attended an ICES conference, International Conference on Environmental Space Systems. And I was the only one with just completely different background, because that time I was from architectural background and every other person was from a science-backed background with some architecture, and they were all from top universities over there. And my project was judged by Astronaut Daniel Burbank. So it was absolutely nervousing. I was so nervous because everybody was a big research. Most of the population over there in the conference was from NASA or some big firms in US. And then astronaut Daniel Burbank, he just gave me this vision that no matter where you are right now, but you should look into this, you should go further into this. And then I was looking for some more research opportunities that I can expand my horizon into this field. But not being a US citizen, I was facing a lot of challenges to get into this thing because space architecture is mostly developed in US and in some parts of Europe. And that time there was nothing in Canada, that time nothing in India. So I was like, okay, let's start my own firm. And that's how I started Aaka Space Studio. And when I started Aaka, I had a vision that I want to build a space architectural habitat, analog habitat. I might not be able to send my habitat to the moon or the Mars or the space right now, but I might be able to test it at least on the terrestrial level, at least on the Earth. So I started with a project called NOVA, and that's when my whole journey started. Then I had so many people who were just like me, who were looking to do something in space architecture, who were motivated to do something in space architecture, but they were not having any opportunity into that thing. And that's how I had more people coming in, and then slowly, steadily, we just started Aaka. But I believe that when there are no opportunities, just create them, and do not fear if you are the first one. Like there's someone who will do the start. So it can be also you.
And I'm really, really inspired. Yeah.
Yes. Also, one more thing that I would like to share is I've been I read this thing from Charles Bukowski, a German poet, that if you start, you go all the way. Otherwise, you don't even start. And that has kind of hit in my life in a very powerful way, because I always, there has been so many moments that I felt like I want to quit, But then I always think that no, I'm 5 steps. I have walked 5 steps, and I might only have to walk 95 more, but I'm going to be there. So that kept me going.
It's truly inspiring, actually. And, me, myself, and Pooja here, we both are also young professionals who aspire to be something in the space sector, coming from our background, which is competitive, let's say, and there are less opportunities, especially in India as well, coming from the political
Yes.
or policy background and things like that. And this is really inspiring, and I believe the audience is also taking a lot of inspiration from Ms. Aastha here. I mean, this is truly, truly inspiring and telling it, oh my God, okay. Yeah.
I mean, I was making hearts right here, okay, while she was talking. So that just talks about how much I loved what she said. Like, I felt like each sentence you were talking was resonating so strongly with me. And you know how sometimes it feels like, oh my God, this is like my story too. You feel so much
Exactly.
solidarity.
Yeah.
I feel that completely with you. And
Yes. Because I think not having enough resources should not stop you from your growth.
absolutely.
So,
And just today, I think I was browsing somewhere on the on Instagram feed, and it showed how 1.4% of girls need to have some sort of an inspiration in a role model in STEM, and they do better 1.4 times if they do. But
yes.
40% of them say that they don't have any role models to look up to, and I feel like now this is one of the role models you should be looking at. Here is one role model for you. Being a pioneer does kind of do that. So I'm so glad we are having this conversation. And there were so many questions that were popping in my head while you were talking, but I think I'll start with the simplest one, which is space architecture. How would you define it for people like us who are very new to it? And why is it important for us to expand our base from Earth to other celestial bodies in space? Like when we are talking about space architecture, the premise is that we are going to be going there. So if you could pick up on those two questions.
Yes. Uh, so I'll try to explain the most simple words. Anything that holds the crew inside, any environment that holds the crew inside and goes to the space, that environment requires some sort of a design and engineering. And in that environment, there are a lot of other factors. For example, sociology and psychology are also combined. And that environment, the designing of that environment is actually called space architecture. Now, let's say, for example, let's say that you want to buy a house. Okay, you want to, let's say you have a piece of a land and you want to build your own house. So you're gonna go on the site, and then you're gonna see where you're gonna have your bedroom, where you're gonna have your toilet. Then we also sometimes consider this vastu things over here, and then we also study the psychological factors that the children's bedroom should be a little bit further from the parents, and the kitchen should be closer to this for the plumbing. There are so many things that are engineering, architectural, social factors. For example, some people wants to have a small religious place, or some people wants to have a meditation place in their home. There's so many psychological factors also that plays a role in terms of a design. So when architectural, design, engineering, sociology, physiology are all combined to design an environment that will keep the crew safe when they goes into the space, that is exactly called space architecture. Now, there are a lot of types of space architecture. Space architecture is a very big subject, and it is very unfortunate that we have not been able to recognize this discipline before, because space architecture includes not only architecture in space, but also extreme environment habitats here on the Earth. For example, habitats on Antarctica region, habitats underwater, under sea. Then, for example, orbital structures, future lunar structures, future Martian structures, Apollo landing modules. These are all a part of a space architecture. It's a very big subject. Now, it is so important for us to expand. Now, many people say that why do we need to go to space when there is so much to resolve here on the Earth? For example, the wars are going on, the climate change, and all of these things. But I want to tell this to everyone, that you have a birth of a human being. You are the most intelligent social animal that exists here on the Earth. Why not push your boundaries when your brain has the limitless capacity? Why not we just try to test ourselves how far we can go? It is about that. It is not about just living like an animal, sleeping, and it is about expanding our horizon, exploration. And by understanding space, we understand Earth. If we did not have satellites, we would have never understood what exactly the climate changes, the global warming is, because satellites help us to understand the different changes here on the Earth. So when we understand Martian soil, and when we understand the lunar soil, we understand more physical factors here on the Earth. And when we understand the sun, we understand radiation over here on the Earth and how does it affect human body. So there are so many things that when we explore space, it helps to understand our own planet Earth in a better way. So why not just go beyond that limit?
And
Absolutely. That
that's
makes
really
a lot of
interesting.
sense. That makes a lot of
Exactly.
sense.
Exactly. And I was thinking,
Aleena, we are destined to all three of us talk together.
I just like how everything ultimately comes down to that particular point. I mean, if you are new here, please do look out for the previous episodes where you can specifically see why Pooja was saying that. But yeah, I mean, I was just simply thinking about how the natural instinct of man itself, like starting from how we spread into different continents, let's say, how people like Christopher Columbus, went on like cruise ship and, not cruise ship, like went on exploration overseas and, found out different places. I mean, that's the basic. I mean, while we were talking, I never thought in this way actually. And while we were talking, I was thinking that way only. I mean, that's how humans have been like throughout all this time. We were exploring, we found out different places to live, we explored different settlements or different places where we can actually develop a civilization, and the greatest civilizations happen. And now it's time to go a little more further ahead to moon or to Mars or other celestial objects. Wow, I mean, it makes so much sense now. My mind is like open right now.
Absolutely. And you know what, Aleena, actually, the way she put it beautifully in terms of like the sociology, psychology, and all of that coming together, physiology coming together, I think that is so beautiful, because we don't realize that things are not in silos.
Yeah.
Things don't exist in silos. We are so, I kind of brainwashed with our education system, like, oh, you're this, you're that, and you're streamlining things. But in reality, things don't exist in silos. You need a little bit of interdisciplinary. You need to like think together. You need to be building and keeping a lot of factors in mind. We are complex creatures in that sense, but beautiful creatures as well, I guess. So yeah, before I ramble on, Aleena, please take over.
Yeah, exactly. We will move on to the next question, which is something that you have mentioned already about an analog habitat. So I want to know, because since I'm not coming from a technical background, I really want to know, like, what is the difference between a space habitat and an analog habitat? Like, what are the concept, like the two concepts? So if you could elaborate a little more on that part.
Yes, that's a very good question, and I think this is the first time someone is asking me the right question. So, okay, now let's say that when we are building a space habitat, we need to consider everything in this. When we go to the space, there is not when we go to space, there is no gravity. So we calculate everything in terms of a volume, because our body behaves very differently when there is no gravity. We have a free form of movement. Okay. And then it is also a bigger structure, because it will have a lot of systems into it. For example, it will have a waste recycling system, water recycling system, oxygen generating system, temperature control, pressure difference system. Everything will be there. Okay, it's the space kitchen, the space toilet, everything. Now, it is extremely difficult for a person like me or a startup firm or any other firm to build the space habitat. The first project to build is a space habitat. And it is very difficult to test it, because it is not easy to that you build an habitat and you send it to the space. It is extremely expensive. So now the bigger the habitat is, bigger it's more the payload and the more expensive it gets. Now it is not I cannot afford millions of dollars, $100 million right now to send my habitat to space. So what do we do? So we design a habitat which is these factors, but can be tested here on the ground at a much cheaper rate, and it can be tested as a preliminary habitat. So now I'll tell you something. For example, my project NOAA, Next Generation Origami Analog Habitat. That project is meant. We are the motivation behind that project is that we're going to build this deployable structure which can fit into SN15 Elon Musk Starship, and then can be deployed on the Mars surface or on the lunar surface in the coming years. But this is going to take us at least 25 years of an actual testing and prototyping back to back, and then and maybe after 20 years we'll be able to send it to the space, or maybe 15 years if we are doing very great. So how do we test our thinking and our technology? And that is why what do is we start from the scratch. So now when we're designing the NOAA, we think that, okay, we're going to have, first of all, we consider our whole structure that we have to fit it into this area. So we get some floor plan for the scene. Then we identify, okay, how many crew we are going to send it out. So we're going to say, let's say we're going to send it, the habitat is for the crew of 6 people. Then what we're going to have, the space kitchen and the space toilet. Of course, we're not able to solve the space kitchen and space toilet from now onwards, because it is a very lengthy process, not as simple as it looks like, that you design a space toilet and a space kitchen. So now, then we do some sort of a habitat planning. Okay. Now it is very hard to build this analog habitat with the actual space materials in the first stage. So we consider the materials which are readily available here on the Earth's surface. For example, wood, plywood, plastic sheets, carbon fiber, things like that. And with that, we build a small habitat, not the big scale habitat, but a small scale habitat. For example, the habitat for the space, we require 6 crew. For here, analog habitat, we will design it for the 2 people. And then we take it to a very stimulated environment where there is nothing around. Like, it is not in between the city. It is in a far most environment where you don't have any facility. And you live in that habitat for a period of over 30 days or more. It can be even more. And then you see and then you make a comparison while you are living in that habitat. How would you be when you are going to be on the Mars? Then you start thinking of the actual challenges that you will need when this habitat goes on the space. So then we start thinking, okay, we are 2 people living in this small confined space. How are we doing it? For example, let's say that we have a roommates. We are always going to fight at some point, right? Yeah. So when we are going to the space mission, we cannot afford to fight. That's never happening. You are bound to be in that area. So that, and sociological factors that we start thinking that how this area, so every human being has a distance. Anybody who tries to come, and it is usually 5 meters, and it is called a personal space, basically, in other simple language. Now, anybody who tries to interrupt your personal space, you start to get agitated, you start to get irritated, and then the frustration comes out. Now, when we look to space, there are long-term missions. We cannot afford this kind of things. So then when we are living in an analog habitat, which is also cheaper to build because they are built with the Earth readily available cheaper materials. The only thing that is going to change is the actual materials. They're going to be replaced with the actual materials. So then when we live in that habitat, we start to see, okay, so we have designed this bedroom area over here. We have designed these systems over here. We have designed this kitchen over here. How well this is going. We start testing the first stage of our design. And we start testing that in a low cost manufactured way. And that is what an analog habitat is. And you test that in a extreme environment or in a isolated environment. And that is very much possible for you to do it. And that is what is called an analog habitat. And that is how it is different. Now, what happens? So we have this our NOAA project. Right now, we just finished solving our origami pattern. And that is because we have been working on this for the last 1 year since we started Aaka. And we just finished figuring that out. We're going to build that habitat by the end of this year. We're going to start building it. And then we're going to take it to some mice. I won't be able to disclose the location right now, but we are going to take it to the extreme environment area. and then I am also myself going to live in that habitat, and then I'm going to start thinking, okay, maybe we can replace this materials with actual space materials, and it will cost us this, so I need to have this amount of funds. Okay, maybe I need a better flooring over here, maybe maybe I can put my oxygen generating system over here, maybe I can have an airlock like that, maybe I can store EV equipments over here. And that's how you're going to progress the next step of your research work. So then what will happen in the next 5 years, we're going to enhance more and more of our habitat functions, and then we're going to work on individual part of our habitat, and eventually it will be converted to a space habitat in the next few years. So this is an analog habitat is the first milestone to understand what does a space habitat looks like.
Wow, that is amazing. I am literally mind blown again.
Exactly. I'm just thinking about the efforts that goes into in building this habitat. Like,
It's a lot.
I mean, you mentioned about yeah, exactly, and you mentioned about the origami structure, right? I mean, if you can, I'm just curious to know, like, is it like a other previous stage before the analog habitat? I mean, the step that is before the analog habitat, before you build the analog habitat, is the origami, making this origami structure. I mean,
Yes,
if
yes. So what happens? We start with the sketches. Okay. Now the reason of adopting origami instead of inflatable structures. Inflatable structures are basically used in the space. They are like a balloon, like you blow them with air pressure and they're gonna blow. But I feel like they are very also from the research work that I've studied and everything. They're very hard to maintain because you need constant air pressure. The moment you lose the air pressure, it's going to blow up, blow down. And then it is also very hard to repair the structure. Maintenance is also very high. And also, how do we do the interior of it? There are so many challenges into that, and that's why I came into like, why can't we have a solid, lightweight structure which can be folded and unfolded, and it can also do the same performance as that of the inflatable structure. And that's how we got into origami. Now, what happens? Origami is not that simple that it looks like, because it has there are mountain folds and there are valley folds, and there's a lot of math behind that, because we have to have a certain degree of rotation for the panels to fold and unfold. And the hardest part is the mechanical joints for those panels, and also to make sure that the panels are lightweight, they are thin. And then the biggest challenge that we face right now is there is no expertise for this thing. There is no one who can just like, if you just go to web and you see, okay, origami deploy structure expert, you're not going to find any. It's we do not have any expertise into this thing, but looking at the scope for its future development, so we are I think also some of the first people who are also doing this thing here. And so we start with the sketches, then we make like at least 50 samples of paper folding, and then after that we again go back to our AutoCAD and we again draft those lines, and then we give it for the 3D printing, and then we just 3D print some panels, because it's also very expensive to 3D print everything all at once. So we 3D print some panels, we make some panels with cardboard, and then we again stick it together. We try to see if it can deploy it not, and then there are always air gaps. Like there are big gaps that you have to cover. Now, the more panels you have, the more mechanical joints you're going to have, and the more complex it gets, because what happens if any of the mechanical joints stops working or it is froze? So there are so many things to consider before you build the final version. And also we go through a lot of stimulations and analysis itself in the software as well, because we use a number of softwares. We start from the AutoCAD. After the AutoCAD is done, we move on to the Rhino Grasshopper. We do the computer coding, and with the help of the computer coding, we understand the deployment and undeployment, structural analysis, mechanical analysis, heat analysis, thermal analysis, everything in Astran and ANSYS. And then we go on to building the small scale 3D printed structure. So it's a very long process, and that's why it's taking us so long.
I'm like, I have full on respect for those who are doing space architecture now, because I mean, I know like every sector, every discipline, like let it be engineering or law and policy, space medicine, whatever you name it, they all have some sort of like a prototype creation, a draft creation, or before the final version. But this seems like the most difficult or the heaviest part out of all of the things that I have listened to so far, because for all the steps you are also going to make a draft. Like for even for the origami structure, there is a draft or there is a lot of things that you have to consider. When it comes to the analog part, there is a lot of extra things along with the usual things to consider. And I feel like, wow, this job takes a lot of patience, right? Tell me, it takes
Oh,
a
it
lot.
does. It takes a lot of patience. It also takes a lot of funds, and it is also the biggest challenge that we face is like. So this is all in the beginning years. It's all going to be research work, and you do not get. It's so hard to get funds from the government for your research work, and it's so hard to commercialize a field which does not really exist in that country, and then also to able to fund to build their prototypes and also to able to fund your expertise, because nobody wants to do free work for after a certain period of time. So as an entrepreneur also, and as a space entrepreneur, it takes a lot, and I think you guys can also understand what does it take.
Absolutely. And
That's the biggest challenge.
Aleena, you were talking about respect for space architects. I feel like changing my field and becoming a space architect after listening to her. I feel like this is so interesting. I love the way, the passion with which she was talking. I was literally just like, okay, I want to keep hearing and hearing more of this.
I'll tell you
Question? I
something.
mean, yeah.
You
Go
know,
ahead.
you just said that you want to become a space architect. I will just tell you something. The view from the mountain is always beautiful, but the
But the
but
climb,
that climb is what
I
makes
was
you sweat and turn away and then give up.
I was about to say that. I was about to say it in a different way, saying that, bro, if you are ready to give up the PhD, the long years
So
of
my
PhD
PhD
work.
is my PhD is an Everest for me by itself. By
I
itself.
mean, with that, you're thinking of another Mount Everest. Okay, good.
No, but at least for the Mount Everest, she is closer to the space because it's the
Yeah.
highest cliff in the world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is
But bro, I
So
mean,
she is the
another thing
most
is,
close. She's the closest. Yes.
yeah, absolutely. And another thing, anyway, I mean, I'm not going to disencourage you. Disencourage, is that even a term? But yeah, you got the point, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to do that
Don't worry, my
because
reality check is quite, there. But one can still like dream. It's like, okay, I'll tell you what. When I wanted to learn about like outer space politics, like 6 years ago, I spoke about it when no one really was speaking about it. And that time it started off only as, oh, this is interesting and I should read about it. Then I did one project in college. Then I wrote a research proposal, and then I actually went ahead and applied for a PhD. So it always starts with like something small, and I feel like this is something I just want to like know more, read more, like just learn more about. I feel like that is
You
something
join Aaka. You join Aaka Space Studio.
I
And you
will
find
now. I'm definitely going to come to you, and I'm definitely the ideas are popping in my head. I'm definitely going to come
And
to you.
I just have a very curious. I was when you were saying about outer space politics, I was just thinking that because I've also done a job while I was in my beginning years. It was very even hard for me to understand our office politics and
I mean, I will tell you
the
one thing
office
on this part.
politics, the relative politics. And
I
we're
mean,
talking about space
I
politics.
mean, yeah, space politics is an entirely different thing. But I'll tell you one thing, and also for the audience, if you're interested, just imagine all the countries as different individuals. Like India as an individual, it have a nature, it have a character, and same goes with other countries. And whatever happens in space or the outer space politics is basically, if I have to relate it to, it's kind of like a lot of like all the sons and daughters of Mother Earth living under a big house, and they're just fighting over space. If that makes it easier, because that's as easy as it is. And like when it comes to like space architecture and other things that you have mentioned, Pooja, I know your interest is still there, but nevertheless, like go for it if you're still interested, because I know you're going to be like the jack of all trades in the space sector. So for the audience out there, please do look out for whatever that is happening in the
Yeah.
life
Thank
of
you, thank you
Pooja.
for a shout out, Professor Aleena, for this and for this very short,
Yes.
Outer Space Politics 101 session. I'm going to throw another analogy here and be your teaching assistant.
Yeah,
Okay.
please do.
How I explain, what people always ask me, what are you going to do? What are you doing in your PhD? And I say, basically, it's like a chess game. Okay, all your countries are the players of the chess. Okay, and each of them have a unique way in which they move. All right, the movement, the rules that they have, that is the policy that they follow, right? And the players themselves are different. So different countries have their different policies and how they interact, and ultimately, who is
Yeah.
clashing with who is what the game is. So it's very like it's nice for people, some people.
But then again, there is a distinct feature that you have white set of group and the black set, but in international politics, it's not just two groups.
Yeah,
there are
many
complicated. Exactly, there are many groups, but then
exactly. I mean, even now also, like sometimes when I find an alliance of group or they just use some name or something, I Google it and see like which all countries were there again. Please tell me. Because it's so difficult to keep a track of who, like sometimes out of all of a sudden, one of the countries leave and we are like, so you left? So,
so you left?
Yeah, you left. I mean, that happens.
Okay, bye-bye, tata.
Exactly. I mean, it happens, right? We know, I mean, and even I know we guys, all of us have been talking a lot about space architecture and space law and policy right now. So if you guys are interested to know more about these, not just this episode, we also have a specific episode with a space law happened with Deepika Jaikadi. Just check it out and you will get to know more interesting. Oh, that episode is also something where these people sent me.
We sent Aleena to space without spending any money though, but we did send her to space. Go and check it out. And before we ramble on other things, I am going to ask my question because it's been playing on my mind since a long time. Okay, Aastha, you spoke about Noah a little bit, all right, and I know that you have done a lot of other projects. I think Optu, Thor, Mangala, and Noah, like you mentioned, there are all these projects. I just wanted to know all these things that Aaka Space Studio has been doing, and especially all these projects, whatever you could tell us. I would love to hear more about it. I'm sure that our audience is going to enjoy it as well.
Okay. So that is like you are asking an encyclopedia where to start from. So we have like okay. First, I will tell you what kind of projects we are doing, and then I will divide into those categories. There are three types of structures that can go to the space. One is the prefab structures, class 1 habitats. Now, what happens in prefab structures? They are built it on Earth, and then they just go to the space and they're deployed. Another one is semi-prefab structures. For example, we do half of the construction over here, and then half they're assembled in space. Then the third one is that you can have is a 3D printed habitat using ISRU resources, in situ resource utilization. And those can only be done on the lunar surface or on the Martian surface. So Mangala is my first project, and that is how I started everything else. Mangala is I gave the name Mangala because I really believe that we should never forget from where we are, like our roots, we should never forget. And so that was a very special project to me. In Mangala was a 3D printed habitat used with basalt fiber 3D printing material. And it is also basalt fiber is also a Martian regolith kind of a thing. It is a different material. And then I used more materials like aerogel insulation because I need to insulate my habitat. And then high density HDPE plastic for inside and exterior interior. Now that habitat was, that was, to be very honest, that was like till a conceptual level of an habitat because it is not possible to test that thing yet. So we tested here on the Earth. I 3D printed that habitat. Now in that habitat, I had three different floors. In the basement floor, under the ground, I had the crew quarters, and I had a toilet, and then I had a work area because when we're designing for a space where there is going to be an extreme radiation, we need to make sure that the crew is safe, and where the crew is going to spend most of their time, it needs to go underground so that they're protected from radiation. And then I had a ground floor. We had an airlock system, and then next to the airlock we had an EVA where all the equipment would be stored. And then I had a hydroponic lab, and then I had some other chemistry and bio lab, and then I had a communication lab on the top of that floor, and then some storage areas. That was my first habitat. Another one, after that, we started with Thorpe. Thorpe was a very simple form of a Yoshimura deployable structural pattern. And that is also, that habitat can also be modularized, because it's very important that when we're designing prefab structures for space, we are able to modularize those. For example, let's International Space Station. It all started with just one module, and then the Russian module and the US module, and then the Japan module, it all came together and it formed the whole big, the modularization was possible. So as we would expand in the coming years, that is why we need to have modularization. And then we also did this project called Orbit 2. That project is we did in a collaboration with Think Orbital, a British-based firm. And in that, so basically they had this photovoltaic panels which can be welded and which can be attached with the use of the magnetic pool in space. So they will be basically transporting just panels from the Earth, and then when they go to the space, they will have a robotic arm to fix the panels in a cube, and that will be fixed with the use of the magnets on the end of the panels. That was another project that they did. But and we have so our website is under development. I think by the time our viewers will see our podcast, our new website will be out, and on that we have a lot of more space architecture projects that we are placing on our web. And we have done a number of 3D printed habitats. We have done a number of lunar habitats. We have also done a project called IOTA. It's a space tourism project in collaboration with the NASA India students. And also, okay, I'm going to tell you this thing. Just in over the last 3 months, we have taught over 300 plus students, and we have collaborated with also NASA India. And then we are also teaching space architecture. So anybody who comes from any background, anybody can join from any background at any age. We teach space architecture from the scratch until you are able to, we help you to develop your own idea into a concept. We help you with a 3D model and everything. But at the end of the workshop, you at least have one habitat of your design. So that is we have also started that thing. And then now on the website, you're going to see that we have a separate section for lunar architecture, separate section for Martian architecture, and then we also have a combination of space architecture. But our main focus is NOAA, because we are very firm on building our NOAA, and we're going to also test through one of our expedition.
I mean, that's really, really interesting to hear about. And I had a quick question. So,
yes,
is the program that you are offering for the students, is it like, how to say, like a complete all-round program, or can we take it like a part-time kind of a thing? Like, can we do it when we are studying something else? Like, for example, oh yeah, okay. That's interesting.
Yes. Now, but I will tell you the motivation behind this program. Now, see, there's so many people who wants to get into space, because the space sector is a booming industry right now. Like, it is estimated that by 2030, it's going to be like 100 billion of a space sector. So now I want to create that pathway that even if you do not come from the space background, I want to give you that opportunity that you can be a part of a space sector, the rising global economy into space. And that is why we started with this workshop, because we have so many students who are from architecture and different backgrounds. But then through this workshop, they're able to understand what does the space industry look like? What is a space sector? What are the different subjects into the space sector? What is space architecture? And then after that, being a firm, we also give them an opportunity to get trained into a real scale projects, into our real scale projects. So, and this is like it's a one. So we also have courses, but we also have the workshops. Courses are a little bit more aggressive, because for that one, we have a lot of we need a scientific background, and we have a lot of math into that. So when you are done with the basic level of the workshop, that's when you can participate. So the workshop is like a 1 month. We teach every Sunday. It's only on the weekend. And then you work in a team of 4, because we make sure that one person or two in the team has very good design skills, so they can help push out the project well. And so when we have all the students, we just make sure that every team has one technical person, one design person, one this person, and then so they work in a whole complete level of a project. And then throughout the week they are given a task, and it depends upon them how they are doing it. But on the every weekend we have in-person sessions, and then in person we also help every group individually to progress their habitat design. It's a yes.
This is also a sort of multidisciplinary, right? Like having different segments coming in, like from design, from technology, and things like that. It's really interesting. Yep.
Yeah, and I feel like Aleena, you just asked the question which was on my mind, because the moment she said teaching, I was like, I was just talking about me learning, and now there's this. I definitely want to know more about your educational programs, especially like what are the different things you offer, and I think there was something, the student associate program that I read somewhere.
Yes.
Also, do you do this offline, online? Is it a certification? See, there is like a real student questions that are coming in.
Okay. There is a saying that you never stop learning until you die. And I think we're all on the same path for the same. Okay. Now, as I explained before, that we have this lunar architecture, because so we have conducted at least 3 space architectural workshops, and then students, they pick up their own project. Some students pick up orbital project, some students pick up the lunar architecture project. So then I thought, why not I just divide it separately into a whole different complete set of the workshops, so we can go in depth. Now I'll tell you something very personal, that I do not believe in just research work. If we cannot implement our design, if we cannot implement our research, then it just stays on the paper. I believe in building that, in that practicality of your idea. So we try to make sure that in the workshop that we are not just doing some conceptual design just for the sake of good looking things. We are also thinking in our mind that what if your project gets the fund to build it? Are you able to build that project or not? So that is why we started our projects. We started our workshop into now 7 steps. We start with our mission analysis. It is very important in our workshop that we teach that what does your mission is about. Like, what are you planning on to do? For example, if you're going on to the moon, why are you going? What is your mission? How long are you planning to stay there? What you're going to build there? What you're going to do there? So we have to have a mission definition. And followed by that, we try to understand another thing is geomorphology, like a topographical study, where we teach them. For architects, it's very important to understand on what we are building, because the soil is everything. So for example, here on the earth also, when we try to build the higher structures, we try to we also do the soil study to understand how deep we can go in terms of our foundation. So then we study different types of landscapes on moon, landscapes on the Mars, and the atmosphere in the space. And then followed by that, we have this foam building. Foam building as in we try to work with the different shapes. So let's say that now we know our mission, now we know where we are going to build our thing. So then we try to think what we can build over that thing. So then we study different shapes, we study different squares, and then placing different squares together and seeing what we can build it up, placing different circular cylinders, everything. And then we do some sort of a massing study, how much mass we need in our habitat. And then followed by that, we study anthropometry, because as I mentioned earlier, that human body behaves different in different gravity. So then, and then also in different atmosphere. And then we also lose our bone and the muscle mass when we are in the space. So then I teach anthropometry according to lunar workshop, according to Martian workshop, according to the space environment. And after, now, by this time we know that, okay, what is our mission about? By this time we know that where are we going to land? What is our landscape looks like? Okay, what our habitats looks like? Some sort of an overall structure. How much volume in the area we will need for a human being, for a crew person to be inside that habitat. That's when after that we start defining our habitat. We start drafting our floor plan for the habitat. We start researching into what kind of materials we will use for the habitat functions, and all of this starts to play the role. And then the last part, we work in our cost analysis, because we also need to understand how expensive your habitat is going to be, how viable your project is. So these are the 7 steps of our workshop. In every workshop, we go through the 7 steps according to the subject that we are teaching.
The two things that I really noted while you were explaining it was like the first part where you mentioned, like, if you're doing research and there is no scope for implementation, that research is nothing. I mean, that's the basic rule when it comes to research and being researchers. I mean, oh, I just love this panel right now. We all are women, bro.
Yeah, I've been wanting to say this in such a long time. It's so rare, but like I love it when this is happening.
Yeah, I was about to say that, we all are researchers, but now, okay.
And also from a non-technical background. How do you like that?
How do you like that? No, I'm not going to go there.
No, Earth to Aleena.
Yeah. But the point is, like, that part, it actually makes so much sense. Like, when you, like, for me, whenever I try to find a research gap, I tend to go with that flow only. Like, I want my research to have some kind of an impact. Let's say, I mean, whatever the way it is going to be. And when it's going to come to like technology or architecture or space medicine, the application or the implementation of it's a major part of it, rather than writing a whole 5 to 6 pages of something. If there is no scope for implementation, then yeah, you have a paper on your name. That's it. Other than that, I mean, and again, the last thing that you mentioned about, like looking into all sorts of things and then looking at the cost part, like how cost effective this project will be. And, how the things like, from what I have understood so far in the space industry, I mean, I have not been joined in this sector for like, I think, 3 years, maybe. I mean, I'm way young in this sector. But so far what I understood is people have a natural inclination for cost-effective and innovative programs in the space sector. They don't, I mean, they do, I mean, things in space are expensive. It's a given. I mean, we can't blame anything on that part.
I actually wanted to, leave you with two things. One is that I really want to compliment you because my mentor used to always tell me, whatever you study, whatever you hear about, even if it's the most complex thing, you have truly understood it if you could break it down and make it, understand, make a novice understand about it as well. And I felt like you broke things down and you made us understand that so simply and so beautifully. And you also created interest, for people who are not familiar to, get into it, which is kudos. And second is, of course, to be bold and to get into this field yourself, and not just doing, creating opportunities, studying it, understanding it, but you're also, getting into teaching it. So whatever you're learning, you're ensuring that you're passing it on and you're sharing that, which is, I think, also so beautiful. And I just want to again give a shout out to everyone else. Don't miss this wonderful opportunity of speaking with Aastha directly. Please join us for the live program. Isn't it, Aleena? Shouldn't people really want to join? Please tell them the date again.
Exactly. And yeah, like we always do on Space Smurfs, this is a 1 in a million opportunity to interact with an expert, and that too, this time an expert coming from an entirely interesting domain in space. Just please use this opportunity and talk with Miss Aastha here on August 20th, 7:30 p.m. IST on Space Smurfs Instagram. And I'm so happy that we have such an expert here who will be willing to answer all your questions when it comes to space architecture. And I'm pretty sure you all will be getting inspired through her, the activities that she has done so far and everything. I will be looking forward to seeing you all there for the interactive session. And that mentioned, we will see you guys on the interactive session happening on 20th of August. This is your co-host, Aleena and
Pooja. Take care.
Signing out. Bye-bye. Keep smurfing.